Wall Street Journal, July 21st, 2021. What's news? U.S. stocks rose sharply as investors rushed to buy shares that were knocked down on Monday's sell-off. The S&P 500 recorded its best day in nearly 4 months, adding 1.5%, while the Dow and Nasdaq both advanced 1.6%. Chinese factories that supply Apple and Nike and make other products sold in the U.S. are shunning workers from Zhejiang as Western countries increase scrutiny of forced labor from that region. Netflix told investors that while its competition is growing and rivals are combining to create more formidable entertainment platforms, it sees no need to get bigger to compete. Nasdaq is teaming up with a group of banks, including Goldman and Morgan Stanley, to spin out its marketplace for shares of private companies. Biden said he would nominate Jonathan Cantor to run the Justice Department Antitrust Division, tapping a vocal critique of Google. Top U.S. banking regulators said they would work jointly to modernize rules governing how banks lend hundreds of billions of dollars annually in lower-income communities. Billings, Montana is the new #1 on the Wall Street Journal Realtor.com Emerging Housing Markets Index. Apple has told real estate developers it wants to lease a large campus in Los Angeles for its growing entertainment operations. Worldwide, the U.S. and Germany have reached an agreement allowing the completion of Nord Stream 2, a controversial Russian natural gas pipeline, bringing an end to years of tension over the project. Tom Barak, the real estate investor and longtime Trump ally, was arrested on charges that he acted as a foreign agent of the UAE and lied to federal investigators. It appears everyone around Trump is going to jail. So, opinion page. What page are we on here? A13 on July 21st. A deeper look at critical race theory, politics and ideas by William Galston. In last week's column about critical race theory, I said that I had barely scratched the surface of this complex movement. To dig deeper, I turned to a collection of essays by the movement's founder and early adherents, Critical Race Theory, the key writings that formed the movement, published in 1996. Here is what I found in the volume and in an article by Kimberly Crenshaw, one of the book's editors, and one of the movement's most insightful thinkers. Critical race theory denies the possibility of objectivity, as the volume's editors state in their illuminating introduction. Scholarship about race in America has never been written from a distance of detachment or with an attitude of objectivity. Scholarship, the formal production, identification, and organization of what will be called knowledge, is inevitably political. And politics is about power, specifically about the struggle between those who seek it to maintain oppressive hierarchies and those who seek to overturn them. Scholarship can be a powerful weapon in that struggle. The theory moves race to the center of our focus. As the editors put it, it aims to recover and revitalize the radical tradition of race consciousness, a tradition that was discarded when integration, assimilation, and the ideal of colorblindness became the official norms of racial enlightenment. The founders of critical race theory identified with Black Power movements much more than with those who were working for integration. This form of race consciousness can't be reduced to class consciousness. Senator Bernie Sanders, who understood the fight for equality as a class struggle, learned this lesson the hard way during the quest for the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination. Critical race theory is an implicitly left-wing movement inspired by the thinking of an Italian neo-Marxist, Antonio Gramsci, against classic Marxism, for which material conditions are primarily Gramsci, 1891 to 1937, focused on hegemony, Hegemony, the system of beliefs that reinforces existing social arrangements and convinces the dominated classes that the existence order is inevitable. As Mr. Crenshaw puts it, the theory offers a fundamental critique of the civil rights movement and the liberal ideology it reflects. Such theorists argue that the civil rights movement scored some symbolic gains for Black Americans but left their material conditions mostly unchanged, in part because civil rights law is inherently limited. Such laws treat discrimination as isolated acts by specific individuals or businesses as exceptions to prevailing norms and practices, not as pervasive and systemic. Civil rights law can mitigate the consequences of illegal and unjust acts, but it can do nothing to redress the continuing impact of past oppression. Critical race theory rejects the principles of equality of opportunity. Its adherents insist that equality of opportunity is a myth, not a reality, in today's America, and that those who pursue it are misguided. The real goal is equality of results, measured by Black share of income, wealth, and social standing. Critical race theorists reject the idea that sought-after goods should be distributed through systems that evaluate and reward merit. This metric is unacceptable. The editors say because certain conceptions of merit functions not as a neutral basis for distributing resources and opportunity, but rather as a repository of hidden race-specific preferences for those who have the power to determine the meaning and consequences of merit. These critics don't specify which conceptions of merit, if any, they would find acceptable. For those who reject mediocrity and demand equal results, even race-conscious policies such as affirmative action are diversionary. The aim of affirmative action, the book's editors insist, is to create enough exceptions to white privilege to make the mythology of equal opportunity seem at least plausible. Such policies are inadequate response to the persistence of white supremacy. Following Gramsci's lead, critical race theory has used mainstream concepts such as equality and inclusion to wage a highly effective war on position against liberal ideology. Some liberals have been co-opted and others silenced, but now the debate has moved to states and school districts around the country, and many parents don't like what they are seeing. Presenting as honest view of American history in public schools is one thing parents say, but focusing the curriculum on the 1619 project is quite another. Hiring practices and workplaces should be fair and welcoming to all, employees say, but mandatory diversity training promised by the ubiquity of unconscious racism and white fragility is coercive and insulting. Critical race theory's popularizers have done the movement no favors. In his best-selling book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, Ibram X. Kendi bluntly asserts that the only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. The only remedy to present discrimination is future discrimination. If prescriptions such as Mr. Kendi's come to be seen as the inevitable consequences of critical race theory, the movement will end in failure. Well, I'll say it again. Just read Uncle Tom's Cabin. Read it in the schools. Read it at home. It has everything you need to understand critical race theory. I think we can spend all day long putting forth requirements, yada, 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 but it's not changing the world.